Welcome to Steps Forward with Ricky, a weekly walking podcast designed to help you take steps forward in your life and your day. Hello. I've just been informed that this is episode 32. Well, let's start over. Not talking to my producer. I'm talking to you. So first of all, welcome to the podcast. This is episode 32. And if you're new here, this is a walking podcast. So it's very simple. Make sure you're moving your body as you are listening to this. Obviously, if you need to listen to this right now, you can, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, but I would prefer you to be walking. So I'll give you a minute, put your shoes on, get on your feet, clean your house, go outside, go to Target, bundle up. I don't really care how you do it. Just do it. Anyways, let's get back to what I was saying. So it's episode 32, which is so crazy. And I'm not going to talk about how crazy and amazing that is. That's not why I'm bringing this up. I'm bringing this up because this is the first time in my life that I have been consistent with something, like truly consistent. Yeah, I was a life coach and a speaker, and I do marketing, and I do all this different stuff, and I've had a million different ideas in my life. I know maybe you can relate to that. I've tried to change a million habits and do a million different things, but this has been so consistent for me. I show up when I don't want to show up. I am in it for the long run. And this seems to be something that's happening more and more in my life. Maybe you can relate to this. And I really do credit a few different things to this ability to follow through and be consistent with things in my life now, which when I was in a lot of pain and trauma and smoking and just felt really uncomfortable in my own skin, uncomfortable in my life, I couldn't follow through on anything. Which doesn't mean that I don't still wake up and have that feeling of like, I don't really feel like podcast recording today, or I don't really feel like going for a walk, or I don't really feel like doing this. I don't really feel like making a TikTok video. Like I have all of those feelings now, except that I've created this thing with myself now, is I'm allowed to feel something without doing something about it, right? You're allowed to feel something without doing something about it. You're also allowed to feel something and you're allowed to do something about it, but you got to figure out the right kind of things that you got to do with it, right? So for me, it's like, listen, I know myself, right? I know that I need that accountability. I know I need my producer. I know that I'm not always going to want to show up. I know that I get bored easily. I know myself. So I can know myself. And then I also know that I want to be super successful and I want to impact people's lives. And I love to speak and I love to communicate and I love to create. So when you know all these different parts of yourself, you can start to say, okay, am I not wanting to show up because it's a habit or a pattern? Do I need a little break? Is this a Ricky thing? Is this a story I say to myself? And so for me, it's been so important over the last, I don't know how long we've been doing this podcast for. I think it's since we started August 1st, maybe 6-7 months. I'm really bad at numbers. And I was in it since the day I signed up to do this podcast. Like no matter fucking what. It's very similar to how I felt about when I walked away from weed. Like I was in it the day I walked away, no matter fucking what. I swear, I knew the shit was going to come up where I didn't want to do it. I knew I would have days where I craved it. I knew I'd have days where I didn't want to show up in the studio, but I was in it. And people always say like, how do you stay consistent? Well, you stay consistent by showing up even when you don't want to show up, but you stay consistent by committing to the process. I was so committed to this podcast. Like even before I had listeners, I was like, I'm in it. I had an intuitive feeling, I can't even explain it, that this podcast was like going to be bigger than me, that it was the right decision, that it was a door that I had to open. It felt like it was just like bigger than me. I don't know if you've ever felt that way. And then the marijuana, walking away from weed, this was like, you have to do this. This is the next step of your life because you don't get to the other steps until you take this one. So being consistent is also glorified and glamorized as if like people want to be consistent all the time. Like that's just bullshit. I don't always want to show up. I love you guys and I love this podcast and I love my community and I love a lot of things in my life. But listen, the best of me always sort of gets in the way first. So that's why I always say your first thought is not your final thought. What's your second thought or your third thought? Your first thought is I want to get high. Your first thought is I don't want to put this post out there. I don't want to go to work out. I don't want to do this. What's your second thought? Maybe your second thought is like, I still don't want to do it. What's your third thought? I can do it. I'm going to do it. because who I'm trying to be is more important than who I am right now. I'm going to repeat that for you. Who I am trying to be, who I know that I can be, is more important than maybe who I am right now. So episode 32 doesn't just mean that I've put out 32 episodes. It means that I've showed up 32 freaking times on the road, on a rainy day, through a breakup, through heartbreak, through loneliness, through feeling sad, through addiction, on the road, in hotels and Airbnbs. I mean, I just show up. And it's a messy journey. Sometimes when I record something, not all of it gets recorded and my producer wants to murder me. Sometimes I cancel and I reschedule shit. Sometimes the audio isn't as good as he wants to be because I do something wrong. But I still show up every single week. Sometimes I have cravings to smoke. Sometimes I don't want to put a TikTok video out. Sometimes I get in my own way. But now I get on my way and I keep moving because I don't need the journey to be perfect. I just need it to keep going. And so do you. So it's not just 32 episodes. It's not just you going to the gym. It's not just you walking away from weed. It's not just you showing up. It's you growing up. It's you saying, I don't know if I want to show up and I got these stories in my head and I got all this bullshit, but I'm going to show up anyways. I'm going to do the thing anyways. And I'm just really proud of myself. And I'm really grateful that I have had the courage to get the fuck out of my own way. Because let me tell you what has changed for me. And I want to talk about this for a second because it's actually Brandon, my producer, and I were talking about this last time, like the last episode that I recorded. I always ask him, like, how do you think that episode was? You know, because he gives me he's not just like, oh, that was good. He's just very honest. And he said, you know, it seems like your episodes, the way that you speak is just from a different view now, like a leadership view, like a leadership point of view, right? And I think when I started this podcast, really anything in my life, I always spoke from where I was at during that time. And usually where I was at during that time, maybe you can relate to this, is like I was really suffering. I was going through things. So I always spoke in a way that it was like, I'm having a bad day right now. I'm having a hard moment right now. This is where I'm at right now. I'm suffering from this right now. And because I've done so much work on myself over the last 5 months, especially with, you know, walking away from weed and my road trip and therapy and the ending of my relationship, I don't have to force where I speak from now. It's just who I've become. I've led myself so I can lead others now. And I feel that. Maybe you feel that when you listen to my episodes. If you've been a long-time listener, maybe you see that, you feel that, you hear that. It doesn't make me less relatable. Hopefully it gives you inspiration and hope for where you're trying to go. And here's the other thing that I was thinking about. I used to think that I had to be sad to be relatable, that I had to speak a certain way. I had to keep myself small for people to understand me or for people to relate to me. I talked a lot about my mom, talked a lot about things that didn't really serve me. And it really wasn't until 5 months ago, almost 6 months ago, when I, took this step forward and walked away from weed. And I gave myself the opportunity to step into my voice and my confidence. And I said to myself, like, I don't need to be sad to be relatable. I can be strong and relatable. I don't need to be on the same page as someone at the very moment that they're going through something to lead them. I can lead them from a few steps ahead. In fact, that's where I should be. So sometimes you start something and you start it from a different angle or a different view or as a different person. When I started this podcast, I started it because I was not in a good place. I started it because I needed a place to be me. I needed a place to not give any thought to what my thoughts were. I needed a place where I could show up and I could share. And I was going through a lot. I was in a relationship that wasn't right. I was an addict. I was sad. I was unhappy. And I started a podcast because I needed to take steps forward, because I needed a place to express myself. So everything that I was sharing for the first couple months was really through that voice. And then I made a lot of changes, not all at once, but one by one. And when you make changes, you start to grow and you start to evolve. And I always dreamed of myself being in this leadership position, even though I've always really been in it in a lot of ways because I was a life coach and stuff. But this is different. You know why? Because I feel like a leader. There's a difference, right? There's a difference between someone telling you like you're this, you're that, and then you feeling that way. People ask me a lot, like, what do you think the biggest change that you feel internally over the last 5 months for you is? And I have so much confidence in myself now. Not from like an ego point of view, not from like I'm the best. I just like truly love who I am now. I don't know that I ever loved who I was. I didn't really believe in myself. I had so much pain and trauma. I don't know if you can relate to that. I couldn't get past it. I had to escape myself so much because being with myself was so scary. And one step forward at a time, I've shown myself evidence that I am whoever I want to be. I can do whatever I want, not all at once, not perfectly. I can be consistent with a podcast episode. I can show up for them. I can lead people. I can create a community of TikTok that's growing rapidly to almost 30,000 people. I can have a podcast that's globally ranked. So can you. I don't know if you want to do those things, but whatever it is that you want to do, you want to walk away from weed, you can do that. You want to start a project, you can do that. You want to end your relationship, you can do that too. You want to get into shape, you can do that. You can do anything you want, but will you? That's the question. I knew that I could do all these things. I don't know that I really could see myself doing them, but I knew that I could, like it was possible, right? It's always possible. But then I got to a point where I was like, this is my fucking life. Why am I wasting it high? Why am I wasting it not believing in myself? Is somebody going to come down here and like wave a magic wand and be like, Ricky, your life starts now? Like my life is already happening. Sometimes we need some fear to kick ourselves in the ass. And I was so scared that time was running out. And I hope that you know, like, wherever you're at is not permanent. And it's good when you see someone who's a few steps ahead of you because you have to realize that you're not that far behind. Showing up for this podcast and building this community and starting this Walking Away from Weed program and just stepping into all of my worth. That is not something I saw myself being able to do 6 months ago. And let me tell you this, people always say it takes a really, really long time to change. I actually don't think that's true. I actually think you can change fast. I don't think that everything changes at once, but I think when you make decisions, doors open, right? Like I made a decision to stop getting high and the universe liked that. They were like, yes, finally. And then it threw other things at me, good things. And sometimes it just takes the right decision for the right doors to open. I don't think you need 10 years to change your whole life. I think you just need to make decisions now that will start to change it. Maybe a pattern. Maybe it's the ending of a relationship. Maybe it's asking for more money at your job. Maybe it's creating a program. Maybe it's going to the gym twice a week. You want to change your life? You can. You don't have to wait a million years to do it. And it's not going to take that long. It's really not. Because what happens is when you make one decision, it has a ripple effect on all the other decisions, right? So I got rid of weed and then that opened the door to therapy, which opened the door to my confidence, which opened the door to my relationship ending, which opened the door to me feeling better about myself on my own, which opened the idea of like, hey, maybe I should go on a road trip by myself, which opened the idea that I loved being free and made me realize that I want to be back in Michigan, which got me an apartment in California, which opened the door to just new relationships and new connections and new thoughts, what got me a TikTok and, helped me build a Walking Away from Weed program. It's like, you think that all came at once? Of course not. It came with one decision at a time. So this week, I want you to make one decision, just one. It could be it could be like, I want to keep my room clean every single day this week. I want to walk away from weed. I'm going to tell my partner how I feel. Whatever it is for you, just make one decision, one good decision. And then realize that you don't have to have every detail to make a decision. I started a podcast. I've showed up every single episode. And here we are. I walked away from weed. I shared my story. And here we are. I wanted to go on a road trip. No clue what was going to happen. And here we are. So screw the details for right now. Just make the goddamn decision. And then show up for the decision you made. Show up for yourself. I love you guys. And I'm grateful for you. And if I can do all of this, you can do all of this. And we're always going to be doing it together. So I hope you had a good walk. Drink water. Walking Away from Weed program starts March 8th. I'm going to be running this monthly. So you're not going to miss out if you don't get on this one. But if you're interested in it, please DM me on Instagram. I'm keeping it relatively small, but I'm going to be running it every single month. Would love to have you. And just stick around because I honestly, in my heart, think that we're only just getting started. Have a great day.